Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining today's Sage 100 Tips and Tricks webinar. I believe I'm being joined today also with Jody Patterson from our office. Jody, are you on the line?
Yes, good afternoon.
Thank you. I will let you do the introductions, please.
Okay, thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon. My name is Jody Patterson. I'm the Client Care Manager for Oasis Solutions. We're going to be doing a webinar today. It's one of our tips and tricks webinars. And Pam Scott, our Director of Client Services, who you just heard, is going to be demonstrating business insights in Sage 100 today. Your phones are muted during the demonstration, but please feel free to post questions into the questions dialog box in the GoToMeeting session. We will do the best we can to answer questions during the webinar, and if we are unable to answer the questions during the webinar, we will follow up offline with those answers. Typically, the Business Insights webinar is extremely popular and generates lots of questions. So feel free to let them fly and know that we will follow up if we are not able to answer them during the session today. So we are recording, and the recording of today's webinar will also be made available to attendees or registrants, as well as on our website after the webinar. So without further notice, let's take it away, Pam.
Thank you, Jody, and thanks everyone for joining us today to talk about business insights within Sage 100 and Sage 100 Cloud, which was previously known as Sage 100C. We find that the business insights module is relatively underutilized by most clients in their Sage 100. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to walk you through an overview of the functionality and the features within the business insights. So you actually see a module listed as business insights. This is not something that you purchase, an additional module that has to be purchased. It comes within Sage 100. So everyone should have business insights. Depending on if you're running a much older version, you probably will not have some of the same functionality that we are covering today. But once you get upgraded, you will have all of this functionality. And today's presentation is being presented in the 2018 version of Sage 100. So we're going to go into Business Insights. And you'll notice when you open Business Insights, you have three options. You have the dashboard, you have Reporter, and you have Explorer. So we're going to start today with the dashboard. And what the dashboard will do is it will give managers, owners, individual departments, department heads, it'll give them access to key business information within the Sage 100 in a dashboard look on their screen within Sage. So if you want to set up a dashboard, you're going to click on the dashboard folder, and you have several different options. The first thing you're going to go into is dashboard options. And this is where you're going to, you can give the dashboard for a company name. You can put a logo. You can put your logo on the dashboard, which in this demo data is kind of a funny logo. You can list the number of segments you would want in a pie chart, and also the number of detail lines you would want in a table. And then on the additional tab, you can set it up to prompt a user to update. So meaning that if I go into my Sage and I have not updated or refreshed my screen, for lack of a better term, when it talks about updating, think of it as a screen refresh. If the data is older than 6 hours, it will prompt me to update it. You can have it always prompt you when you go into Sage. And you can also set it to 6, 12, or 24 hours, or to never automatically prompt. And then you can also set up an automatic dashboard update for it to perform automatic updates, refreshes, and then also list the number of hours between the auto refresh. So this is just a very simple setup screen with your with the initial dashboard options. You also notice that if you look at the bottom left, I'm working in the ABC company, and you'll notice this is reflected up here. So if I happen to change companies, I would have to set up the dashboard options for that company as well. So I could have a different logo listed. I could also have different parameters listed for that setup. So your next step is determining the next step is to determine what, setting up those dashboards, who you are setting them up for, and what you want them to be able to see. So you're going to go into the dashboard maintenance wizard, and it's going to just walk you through step by step. So I'm going to click on next. And then it's going to say configure dashboard for user. So if I do a lookup, I will see any users that I have set up in my system, in my Sage 100. So I could pick whichever user I'm referring to. Also, if I click on my flashlight, you also will see the default user. So in Sage 100, there's always a default user that's just there generically. So if you have several people that are assigned as default users, you can have the dashboard come up on all of their screens. But I'm going to select mine since I already have something out there. You also can allow whether or not that individual user can modify their dashboard page, meaning that they would be able to go in and make changes to it. And also, if you do not want this user to be prompted for updates. And I'm not quite sure why you wouldn't want that. Then I'm going to go to the next screen, and this list on the left side of the screen, let me just move this out a little bit. This lists all of the various options that you have for your dashboard. And you can notice that I already have some of these set up for myself, but if I wanted to, let's say that the cash expectations I no longer needed to see on my dashboard, I would click on this and then just click my remove arrow, and it's going to remove it from my dashboard. But then, by the same token, if I do want to take a look at sales, I can highlight sales and then click my add arrow, it's pointing to the right, and then it will add it to the list. And they're going to show up on my screen in this order. If I want my sales to be right next to or below my top customers, I'm going to highlight it, and then I'm going to click this little arrow to the right where it says move up, and I'm going to move that up on the list. If I have completed my selection, I'm going to click next again. This gives me kind of an overview of what my settings are and what I'm looking and what we have set up for the views available. I'm going to click finish. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and click to display the dashboard. And it's going to come up on my screen. So everything that we had listed is now going to be showing on my screen. So it will show you the date that it was created. Now I have, if you'll notice over here, this says as of October 10th, 2020. I have told the Business Insights dashboard that I want to use that date because my demo data is in a future year. Normally, you would just have it be active as of that particular day. But it's going to give me a list. Now you can notice that some of my charts are not providing any information because this is very generic demo data. But if I scroll down, you'll notice where some of these items are underlined. So if I want to click on this, it's actually going to drill down a little bit deeper. It drills down directly on that customer and takes me into customer inquiry. So I could go over and take a look at their invoices. I could take a look at whether or not I send them statements. Going back to this invoice tab, I can look at their aging situation down here at the bottom of the screen. If I click OK and I close out of this, I still remain on the screen. If I wanted to look at A to Z carpet, I would click on that, and then it's going to drill down into the customer inquiry again. You'll notice there's some things listed at the bottom, some reports. If you click on those, it's actually then going to take you into that report and actually generate it for you. So it's kind of things that you can do on the fly from within that dashboard. Now, I'm going to show you another example. Excuse me. These are the dashboards that I have set up for myself. I also have a user in the system called CFO. So I'm going to change my user to CFO. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up and I'm going to refresh my dashboard either by clicking this icon or I can click right here. But I'm going to refresh this, and what it's going to do is it's now bringing up the view that the CFO has. So this is what the CFO is seeing every day, where they're looking at more financial information and can actually, do some drilling down into these receipts that are listed. You can, on this accounts payable chart that I have, if I hover over it, I can actually see numbers. So you'll see that what this is broken down to on this, in this particular area, that the total is $438,000. I have $0 in the 30 days, and I have 438 in the 60 or older days. If I hover over this one, you'll see the detail from there. So not only am I just looking at a generic graph, I can actually do some hovering and see some additional information. And then you'll also notice any reports that are related to these particular dashboards you can see. So it's very easy to add the dashboards, to add, to remove things. You'll notice over here to the right, it says modify this page. If I click on that, it takes me into the wizard. So I don't actually have to go over here and do all the drill, go down into my tree view. I can actually go into the wizard right from this little link. So if you really want to impress somebody or impress the owner of the company, maybe they're always saying, every day, can you tell me what the status of this particular thing is? Or, I'm always wanting to look at my sales by day. Then, set them up a dashboard. You can link it just to their login so that no one else has access to that information under their login, and then they can have a custom dashboard view. So that's kind of an overview of what you can do from within the dashboard. You also have the dashboard maintenance listing, which we're going to take a look at. And all that is really going to tell you is if I run this report or run this listing by all users and I click preview, then it's going to show you by user what they have access to on their dashboard. So this lists everything for the CFO. And then if I go to the next page, you're going to see everything for Pam. It's going to show me how I have it set up, and then what I'm also viewing, what views are customized that I'm taking a look at. So with that on the dashboard, Jody, I'll open it up to see if we have any questions on the dashboard.
Surprisingly, no questions.
Okay, all right. Well, I want to mention a couple of things. Is that there are a couple of the Business Insights features that are not available if you're running Sage 100 Premium. And I should have actually started with that. If you do have Sage 100 Premium, the reporter is not a feature in your system, and the dashboard should be a feature in more recent versions, but on older versions, the dashboard is not an option. So, and it's just based on the SQL backend and how things link and work with Crystal. So if you are on the premium or SQL version and you're not seeing some of the things that we talk about today, get in touch with us and we'll let you know if it's a version issue or if it's working as designed. Excuse me. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go to the reporter module. And when we look at reporter, this is really a kind of a very quick wizard-driven way to create some fairly basic Crystal reports. So, you know, a lot of people will inquire, you know, I'd really like to, you know, to learn more about Crystal, but they really don't have the time to invest in a 2-day class, but they really don't even know where to start. And using this reporter is a great way to start to create some custom reports and have it be menu driven, so you don't have to know Crystal reports in depth. So with the Business Insights Reporter, I'm going to click on this, and I have created one report earlier, which I just created a quick little customer report. So what I'm going to walk through now is I'm going to just grab or create a quick vendor report, just pulling in some of the vendor demographic information into a report format. So again, this is all wizard driven, so you don't have to open Crystal to create this. Now, if I wanted to modify this report, I can make modifications through the wizard, or if you have Crystal reports installed on your workstation, this is the icon. I don't have it installed in this demo data, but I could highlight the existing report and click the Crystal icon, and it would open Crystal reports for me to make additional modifications. But what we're going to do today is all strictly going to be through the Business Insights Reporter and the wizard. So I'm going to tell it that I want to create a new report. And it's going to say, hey, you know, is this what you want to do, is create a report? Yes, so I'm going to click next. And this is a little slow on my screen, so please bear with it. It comes up and it wants to know the report name. And I'm going to call it Vendor Listing Custom. Whoops. Actually, the report name I'm going to make shorter. Vendor, we'll just call it vendor. And then the report description is going to be vendor listing custom. The other great thing about this is you can go ahead and automatically add this report to your menu within Sage 100. So I'm going to click to add the report to the menu, and then if I click the down arrow, I'm going to see all the modules that I have, so I can choose where I want that report to be added. So I'm going to click next, and then it is going to bring up for me in just a minute. It's going to bring up the view. So do I want this report to be in landscape? Do I want it to be portrait, or do I want it to be shipping labels? And so I'm going to do this report in landscape. So it's asking me to choose my orientation. So we'll click that. And now it comes up with all of the fields and areas that are available to use within the reporter. They're in alphabetical order. So if I'm doing something with vendors, I'm going to scroll down here to the bottom of my list. And I'm going to look at, I'm thinking, well, is vendor information where I would pull from? You know, I don't think it's history, but I'm not sure. So if I click on the little plus sign, then I can see all of the various information that's going to be listed there. So it shows me vendor. When I clicked on that, it gives me a description that says this vendor view contains vendor's constant data. So this is appears to be the field that I want. Again, you could, if you're unsure, you can click on something else. Let's look at vendor history, and then you see the options that you're getting in there. It also looks like that you can possibly click on vendor from here. So we could actually pull this data from either one of these databases. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull it from vendor information, and I'm going to click next. And then we're going to wait again. And I do not believe it will work this slow on your system. It's just something about my system with this particular functionality that it's running slow. So now what I receive is on the left side of my screen, I have all of the fields that are available to add to this report. I can actually, if you get into advanced reporting, you can add links, you could add new fields. We're not going to get into the advanced features today, but the more you know maybe about Crystal and doing that type of thing and linking to other databases, you can do all of that from within here. So now it's going to say, okay, what do you want on the report? So I'm going to say that I want the vendor number, I want the vendor name, I want their address, line 1 and line 2. I probably don't use line 3 for any of my vendors. I'm going to put the city, the state, the zip, and I'm going to go ahead and put the name of the primary contact. Now, on the right side of my screen, you notice that it lists out the fields that I've chosen, whether or not there's a total associated with that particular field, the width of the field, and the justification, meaning whether it's centered or it's left or right justified. If I decide that I really don't need address line 2 once I'm taking a look at this, I can highlight that line and then actually remove it. If I wanted to put the vendor name ahead of the vendor number, use this. I think maybe it's not going to let me do that. Okay, no, it's not going to let me do that, but I do want to show you the modify feature. So you can see that the vendor name is going to be 50 characters, the address line, the city, what the width is of those fields. And, you know, it's probably not going to all fit on my page without wrapping. So if I wanted to actually make this vendor name field down to 25 characters, I can highlight this, click modify, and then I can change the width to 25. If I wanted to change the title that's going to be on the report, I could change it to name instead of vendor name. And then here's also where I can choose my justification. I can say whether or not that field can grow. The amount format it would be for numeric fields. So I'm just going to click OK there. So you can see now how it changed that when I do the report, it's going to say name versus vendor name. This is still showing me the selected field. So I'm going to change this to also be 20 characters, and I'll just change that to say address. So you can make those changes. I'm going to click next. This is where you can come up and define how you want to sort things. So if I wanted to sort by vendor name, maybe versus vendor number, maybe your vendor numbers are numeric, but you want your report to sort by vendor name. And then you can say whether you want it in ascending or descending order, the break type. We're just going to click next here. I feel like we should have music playing while we're waiting for the screens to pop up. You can define groups if you need to get, to drill down even deeper and set up groups on this report. We're not going to do any of that for today's presentation, but you can define groups. We can define filters if we wanted to define filters. Again, for today's purposes, we're not going to set up any filters, but most of the things that you can do from within Crystal Reports, you can actually do within this Business Insights report wizard. You can, check it to have runtime filters, the number of copies when you go to print it, if you want to set it for 3-hole punch, if you want to print a summary report, all the different settings that you have within Crystal. You can actually also you can chain reports to one another. So if you have a report that you want to chain it to, you can do that. We're not going to chain to any existing reports today. And then it comes up and it selects roles. So it wants to know who will have access to use this report. So if I want, now this is roles and not users. So that's why you don't see Pam listed here, is because Pam is a user ID and not a role. So we have a role called all. We also have a role that's called CFO, which is tied to this user ID. So I'm going to just set it up for only the CFO, and I'm going to click CFO role. I'm going to click next. Okay, it kind of gives you an overview of what you're doing. I'm going to click finish. If I had Crystal Reports installed, I would have two options: run this report after clicking finish, or access the Crystal Designer after clicking finish. If I clicked the second option, when I clicked finish, it would actually open the report within Crystal Reports itself. I'm going to ask it just to preview and run this report after I click finish, and in just a few seconds, it will come up on my screen. It comes up with a typical printing screen within Sage. So you can either print this report, I can preview it, I can have the option to keep the window open after I preview it. We're going to preview it today. And that's nice, it pulls up absolutely no data. So I will have to go back and figure out why that report is not pulling up any data. So let me do this. Let me go back and take a look. And let's go into this report. This is the customer report that I created previously. And you can see where it did pull in the data. Let me go back and I'll show you if we want to modify this report that I created yesterday for today's purposes. We're going to just walk through the wizard again. And you will see that you will see the fields that were created. Now, what may have happened, I may have picked an incorrect data field, which is a good possibility. Those are the things that if you get a report that has absolutely no data, You need to go back in and figure out, am I pulling from the wrong database? Am I logged in where I don't have access to that report, and that's not why it's not pulling any data in? Could be various things. You'll notice this report I called customer, and also I added it to the AR menu. And Jody, while we're running through this, did we have any questions about the reporter yet?
No questions about reporter, but there was one after the fact about the dashboard.
Okay.
Can the dashboards be exported?
Meaning, are you asking if that pie chart or bar graph or whatever can be exported out into another document? If they can answer that question for you. And we'll continue running through this little wizard.
Right. If that was your question, please expand on that, what it is that you are asking to do, and we will come back to that question in a moment.
Thank you. In light of time, I'm not going to walk through that entire wizard because it's running slow for the customer report that I did. You did see the report, and where I showed you earlier that you can tell it to add it to the menu. If you go into the module you added it to and go under custom reports, you'll see that report listed there. So you can always access it through the reporter going through the wizard, but once you've added it to your screen, it is there just as a regular report, and then you can print it or preview it from here. If you have Crystal Reports installed on your workstation, you can also modify it from here. If you modify it from this screen, you'll have a designer button, and that will take you directly into Crystal. So you could modify it there, but if you wanted to modify it through the wizard, then you would go back to the reporter and bring that up in the listing. So yeah, if they can answer that dashboard question, we'll come back to that and see if we can determine.
They did respond. Yes, they were interested in exporting the dashboard into another document such as Excel.
Okay. If you will take down the name of who's asking that, I do not believe that can be done through that dashboard functionality, but I will certainly double check and follow up with them.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I do apologize that report didn't bring in any data. Obviously, something that I did through the wizard, which most likely was pulling the information from the incorrect database, which also happens with Crystal Reports, is why it did not bring any information in. But for those of you, I believe there's some people that registered today that had previously inquired on a Crystal Reports class, and ironically had inquired the week after we had our last class for 2018 for the intro to Crystal, is that you may use this Business Insights Reporter to help you create some reports. And it's a great place to start. You can play around with it. You don't have to add them to your menu. You also can go in and delete them if you need to from the Business Insights Reporter. So I'll open it up for just a moment to see if we have any additional questions about the dashboard or the reporter. And if not, we'll move on to the Business Insights Explorer feature. Again, surprisingly, no other questions. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, the Explorer is a really neat tool. And again, we don't see a lot of individuals that actually use this. And it may be that they don't realize what it is or where it is. But the Business Insights Explorer is a very convenient way to navigate your business. It brings like an ad hoc inquiry. It brings you drill down capabilities, and it also gives you kind of an overview analysis at the click of a button, which is very nice. So if you look either to the left or the right of the screen, these are all of the existing views that are within Sage 100. So there's quite a few views that are predefined in the system. Again, they're listed. You can basically tell by the name pretty much what module it's from. It's not in alphabetical order, so you'll notice if you're looking for vendor information, here are some vendor views, and then also down at the bottom there are some vendor views. This is related more to purchase order, but that's how it is listed. Anything that says account, that's referring to the general ledger. So an account view basically is going to be, we'll go ahead and click on this. And I'm going to change the date so that we can grab some demo data. So what this is doing is it is going to give you a grid view. It's kind of like a cross between Excel and Access, if you're familiar with either of those products. But what it's going to do is it's going to give you a data grid, and it also, you can create and set up charts on applicable data. But what you can, it gives you various types of various columns, and you can sort these columns by clicking on it and then put it in ascending or descending alphabetical order if you choose to. If you look at the the left side of your screen, it tells you what preview you're in. So right now I'm looking at account history by period. If I wanted to look at, and then down here at the bottom, it's actually then breaking it out by those periods. If I want to look at account memos, what that's doing is any account that has a memo listed on it, which it doesn't appear that any of them do, would show up down here. Account transactions, if I want to look at that preview, it's going to bring those transactions up at the bottom. And account budgets, it's going to bring those up at the bottom of your screen. So I'm going to go back and look at a different view. Yes. Let's look at customer, because this will give you a good idea of how you can also group these reports. So this is looking at your customers. These are all the previews, the information that's going to show at the bottom of your screen. So if we'll do this one, do customer contacts. If I just click on the customer, it's going to show me the contacts for that particular customer. So you see how as I move through the customers, the contacts change at the bottom. So I can see who those contacts are. You can also tell that my salesperson isn't very good because they're not filling in the email address or the phone numbers and so forth for their contacts. But you can see how that moves up and down. If I go to customer memos, if any of my customers have a memo, so we're looking at Shepherd, I can scroll down here and I can see all of the memos that have been set up for this particular customer. If I want to group something, see it says to drag a column header here to group a column. So let's say that I want this report grouped by salesperson. So if I grab salesperson and drag up here, now what it does is it changes that view so that it's grouping it by salesperson and then by customer. So you still have the same previews and drill downs that you had previously, but it's that the screen looks different because you have the grouping. If I don't want to group this any longer, I can just take it and move it back, and it has removed that grouping. If I want the name to be to the left, I can grab my field and just and move it over. As you can see, I'm just moving it, and I can then actually change the way that this looks. If I want to only see Jenny Hernandez's customers, I can do a filter and click that and select her in that filter, and it's only going to show her customers. So there's lots and lots of different things that you can do from within the Explorer view. If I click on this customer, there's no drill down. If I go to open invoices, you can also then see everything listed here at the bottom of the screen. So you can, well, there's an old one with balance forward, but you can also see the individual invoices. You can add filter builders. You can do a lot of the features that you have in Excel. You can actually go up and use those and change the look of your report. So we're going to go back to this screen and say no to save that setting. We're going to go to this one and say no. We're going to go back just to the main screen within Sage 100. So you can see all of the different views that you have by module that are built in. The other thing is you don't necessarily have to go to Business Insights and go to Explorer to find that view, because within each module, if I go to Accounts Payable and go to Explore, I actually see all of the views that are available for Accounts Payable. So you may have an AP clerk that wants to be able to utilize these views, but the only thing that they have access to are the AP module, certain things, and purchase order. So with their role maintenance and having access to AP, you would say that they have access to Explore within AP, and they'll have access to those views. So you don't have to worry about giving them access to everything, where they might get in and look at salesperson view, where you don't want them to have access to any salesperson information or seeing how much, what a certain person's commission is. So the other thing is you do want to make sure that you are not sharing in those views information that, for instance, commission information, which is like payroll data. So that kind of gets us through the Explorer. You can again get quick charts for a visual presentation or representation. You can assess very quickly where things are with your business. So again, maybe the owner of the company is needing certain financial information, and so they have a dashboard, but then you also may want to give them access to various things within Explorer that would be applicable to them. On the task feature, I'm still within Salesperson, but if I click on tasks, it actually shows me the different tasks that I can access from within this view. So if I wanted to enter AR invoices from within the screen for whatever reason, I can click on this, and then it actually will take me right into the invoice data entry. So you have the tasks. If we go back, and I'll go to vendor view, I'll look at the tasks associated here, and you can see the various things. It's just kind of like a shortcut if you're within that screen. You obviously do not have to use that, but it is there for you. So Jody, do we have any questions on the Explorer feature?
No, I think I scared everyone into thinking that everyone else was going to ask the questions. So very quiet audience today.
Okay, well, thank you. So what we're going to do then, just very briefly, is just kind of do a real quick overview, not actually doing any of the demonstration piece, but just of what each area is. So the dashboard is where, now you'll notice when I click on it, nothing popped up. So I can either go click on Business Insights Dashboard to refresh my screen to the right, or I can click on the icon right here, and that is then going to refresh my screen. It tells me the last time, and this is based on the user CFO, the last time it was updated, and what date I want to choose to update it. And so I'm just going to use the same date I used a minute ago. And it is going to pull up that information. It's wizard driven. It is user specific. And I will be following up with the person that asked the question if these can be basically exported out to Excel or into another program. So I will be checking on that for you, and we'll follow up with that. So that's the dashboard. The Explorer is a report writing wizard that allows you to do reports, I would say basic to maybe midline reports, not extremely advanced reports. But if you do not know how to use Crystal, or you prefer not to use Crystal, you can use this Business Insights Reporter to create quick reports. Also, you have the ability then to add those to your menu within Sage, which we talked about. And then we have the Explorer, which basically is lots of different custom views within Sage 100. And let me go back and mention one thing about the dashboards when answering that question about whether they can be exported. If you are using the dashboards, you will not have the drill down capabilities. So if you are exporting it, you would, and if you can export it, it would basically just be the graph or the data. You would not be able to drill down into anything, nor would you have the link to create those reports. So I'm not sure if they're looking for that functionality as well, but you would not be able to do that outside of Sage 100 and the dashboards. But I will take a look to see if you can just export the graphs or the tables into another software. So that kind of gets us through, or doesn't kind of get us through, that really gets us through the presentation today on Business Insights. If you do have any questions, or you would like some additional training or help with setup and kind of walking you through things, please reach out to our help desk, which you can call at area code 502-429-6902, extension 227, or by emailing techsupport@oasisky.com. Any of our consultants will be able to help you navigate the Business Insights. You will be getting information about webinars that we will be having in December related to year-end in managing your 1099s as well as processing W-2s. So we'll be going through some of the things you need to do and remember at year-end. So we will be having those in December. And if there are no additional questions, just that one remaining question, I will we'll go ahead and end the presentation, and then I will follow up via email and answer that final question. Is there anything else, Jody?
No additional questions at this time. So thanks everyone for joining us today. We will follow up with an answer on whether or not you can export the dashboard to other file types such as Excel. And we welcome you to join us for our next tips and tricks next month.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.